Polar bears draw tourists to tiny Churchill, Canada. Here, where the forest stops and the tundra starts, they come to see the bears make their annual trek back to Hudson Bay's sea ice to feed on seals.
Want to know how close you can get? Take a look. We're about 12 feet from this polar bear.
Fine from a protected buggy, but dangerous when hungry bears come to town. And when they are spotted, Conservation Sergeant Ian Van Nest gets the call.
They'll be there within less than 1 minute.
Polar bear here last night.
His polar bear alert team on this day tracking bears at 5 a.m. in the town of 900 people.
Judging by the size of the tracks, that's a sub-adult.
One of the bears was spotted near our hotel. It was a juvenile. The warning shots woke us up.
When they find one of the bears,
We'll haze them to the west.
they fire shotgun blanks in the air to scare it away.
We got cracker shells in our shotguns, and it's all about trying to steer that bear in the right direction.
By afternoon, it's a day to remember.
There's been 6 that have tried to walk in the town today.
6?
Yes.
Is that an unusually high number? Is that the most in one day this season?
That's the most in one day this season. Yep, today's set the record for this season.
Government officials say this year they're seeing more than twice as many bears in town compared to 2022. On the tundra where the bears belong, Polar Bear International's Geoff York says the lack of sea ice due to climate change is the problem.
The longer these bears are on shore, the more likely they're going to start looking for alternative sources of nutrition. That could be communities, it could be human food, it can also be other bears.
How hungry are these bears?
These bears have been generally fasting for 5 months. We will see them eat seaweed. They will try to find food when they're on land, but these are bears designed to eat marine mammal fat. They need that high-fat energy to stay warm and to survive the dark winter that's coming.
And what about mother bears? Even they're feeling the impact of climate change.
Mother bears are feeling it even more than male bears like the one over here, and that's because they're still producing milk for their cubs, and that takes a tremendous amount of extra energy. They're smaller bears to begin with. They're taking care of young ones, and they're producing a very high energy, high fat milk that makes it much harder for them.
An issue we first saw in 2013.
As a result, polar bears like this mother and cub that you see behind me, they now must spend an extra month on land.
10 years later, the risk is even greater. Researchers say the polar bear population here in West Hudson Bay has declined 27% in the last 5 years. The bears are smaller, and this year the sea ice is taking even longer to form.
And what's causing the decline?
The decline is being caused by us, mostly in the south. It's burning greenhouse gases primarily for energy that's warming the atmosphere and is melting their sea ice habitat.
Inside the tundra buggy, York shows us what's happening.
You can see in Hudson Bay, there's really no ice at all.
Not anywhere.
No, all the way out into Baffin Bay, it's completely open water.
If this was normal, how much of Hudson Bay should be frozen?
Historically, by now, we'd see ice coming well down in the Fox Basin, and we'd see ice forming around the shelf, especially down here in the corner around Churchill and Wolf National Park.
What's the impact of the lack of sea ice?
So for bears that come ashore, the longer they're onshore, the more weight they're losing every day, about 1 kilo a day of weight.
Increasingly, that puts Churchill at risk, says Van Nest.
How do you convince a polar bear to leave?
Yeah, so a lot of times, 9 times out of 10, they're scared and they're going to respond to our vehicles, our horns.
Those that don't get the message can end up here at the Polar Bear Holding Facility, also known as the Polar Bear Jail. Here, bears can be held for up to 30 days.
Unlike people, these inmates don't get meals. When their time's up or when there is ice, whichever comes first, the bears are released back into the wild, miles away from Churchill. It's an uneasy coexistence between these apex predators and residents, but one that is working. There has not been a human mauling by a polar bear in 10 years. The last death was 40 years ago. Still, Van Nest, a father of 2 who lives here, is taking no chances.
I got a 5-year-old and a 1.5-year-old, and we don't let them outside by themselves. We have them close to us at all times.
Even in the summer?
Even in the summer. We were busy this summer. Yeah, like we had 170 calls in the summer. And yeah, there was lots of bears around Churchill, and it's not safe to leave your children unattended.
Next year, Geoff York hopes to boost protection with something called BearDar to detect threatening bears.
So, Geoff, what is this?
This is the tower. This is the BearDar.
So this is an early warning system, if you will.
That's the intention.
And this is detecting polar bears?
It's detecting everything moving, so it's already seen us and hopefully determined we're people and not bears. But ideally, as we train the artificial intelligence, it'll be able to differentiate polar bears from other wildlife and from people.
And who's going to use this?
Ideally, this would be used by a larger community, a research camp, or maybe even a remote military installation in the Arctic, someplace where they need to know what's going on around them and be alerted to something coming in.
Churchill has the polar bear alert team. Is this something that team could use?
It is. Traditionally, around the Arctic, we rely on people to detect polar bears, but in the dark and in poor weather, we can't see white things on the landscape very well. So this is one option that might help augment human eyes.
Everyone here has a polar bear story, including Mayor Mike Spence.
You know, like just behind the complex, just in town, just actually Halloween day, Halloween morning, there was a bear that walked right into town.
But Churchill's leader is just as worried about that other threat, the changing climate.
How much do you worry that one day Churchill will no longer be the polar bear capital of the world?
Well, I mean, yeah, you think of it at times, naturally, and that's something that, you know, you ponder, and it may happen, and obviously, and this is why it's critically important that we do our part to make sure that bears are managed effectively and that we can continue to do things that are right, and making sure that we're not putting people and bears, you know, in a situation where a bear has to be put down. And so again, you know, it's it's part of our community, and you know, we're pretty proud of the fact that this community is pretty special, that there's no other place like it, you know, and so we do our part to make sure that we can continue to coexist.
A town doing its part, hoping the rest of the world does the same. Anne Thompson, NBC News, Churchill, Manitoba.
Nightly Films is sponsored by Pfizer.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.